Welcome to another edition of Diplomatic Channel. I'm Amarachi Ubani. This week on the program, it's been 100 days since the Hamas attack on Israel, leading to the latest war in Gaza. Israelis and their friends all over the world commemorated the event, remembering those still being held captive by the Hamas militants in Gaza and praying for their safe return. We'll bring you highlights of the commemoration. Plus, Taiwan has elected a new president, William Lai, on Saturday. Taiwan says it is willing to cooperate with China, but only on an equal and dignified basis. Our feature interview is with the Deputy Head of U.S. Mission in Nigeria, David Green, on Nigeria-U.S. relations. That's Diplomatic Channel in a wrap. We'll be right back with more. The Nigerian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Yusuf Maitama Tugar, has commended the release of former Nigerian President Mohamed Bazoum's wife and son from house arrest by the National Council for the Safeguard of the Homeland, the ruling military junta in Niger. Mr. Tugar, who's also the chairperson of the Mediation and Security Council, said it is a logical step in bringing normalcy back to the country and the region in general. He, however, called on the government, led by General Abdurrahman Chiani, to hasten the release of Mohamed Bazoum from its custody and allow him to fly to a third country as a step towards further talks and lifting sanctions, and to initiate the transition to constitutional rule in the interest of the people, peace and stability of Niger and the region. The British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Dr. Richard Montgomery, has re-emphasized the important role of the Nigerian diaspora in the United Kingdom and pledged more collaboration with the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission. He further stressed the need for enhanced trade and investment between both countries. He made the comments during a courtesy call on the chairman, CEO, Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, Honorable Abike Dabiri-Erewa. He said the upcoming UK-Africa Summit in May in the City of London is a strategic opportunity to galvanize trade and investment for both countries and the African continent at large. Mrs. Dabiri-Erewa welcomed collaboration with the British High Commission and reiterated Nigeria's commitment to continue to enhance re-engagement with the diaspora. Finally, Namibian President Hage Geingob has called on Germany to reconsider its untimely decision to intervene as a third party in defense of Israel at the International Criminal Court following South Africa's petition accusing Israel of committing genocide in Gaza. Germany has offered to intervene on Israel's behalf in the case at The Hague. President Geingob said Germany could not morally express commitment to the United Nations Convention Against Genocide, including atonement for the genocide in Namibia, and at the same time support Israel. Welcome back. Thousands of people came out in Israel to commemorate the Hamas attacks on the country 100 days ago. We remember the attacks as thousands of heavily armed Hamas fighters stormed through and over the Gaza border fence in several different places, attacking kibbutzim, military bases and border towns, many of them overwhelmed by the scale of the Hamas incursion. Thousands of Israelis took to the streets of Tel Aviv on Saturday evening, calling for the release of all captives held in the Gaza Strip. Many protesters lit candles in memory of the Israelis who have lost their lives since the October 7 attacks and those still being held captive by Hamas.
We want to be protected. We deserve to be protected. We deserve a government that will protect us. The war is not going to solve our problems. We have to start imagining something else. We've been in war after war. We have to end the cycle of violence.
Israel declared war on Hamas and a complete siege of Gaza with a large-scale campaign of airstrikes, which Palestinian officials reported had killed over 1,500 people in the first week and many thousands more since. A ground incursion began at the end of the third, with Israeli leaders vowing to wipe out Hamas. A 7-day truce in late November saw Hamas release over 100 people, including 86 Israeli women and children, while Israel freed around 240 Palestinians from Israeli jails. Israeli officials claim that around 136 people remain in captivity in Gaza. U.S. Ambassador to Israel Jacob Lowe attended the rally, but he promised protesters the return of all hostages.
I stand here with you and reaffirm the pledge that I've made to the family members of those who are held hostage. We will not stop working to bring them home.
Demonstrators also called for the resignation of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Meanwhile, relatives and supporters of those kidnapped or killed by Hamas visited a mock-up tunnel that was built in tribute to the victims at the Museum of Art in Tel Aviv. Visitors were seen touring the dark 30-meter tunnel while listening to speeches by relatives of the hostages and victims. About 1.7 meters high and only 1.6 meters wide, the tunnel was built to raise awareness about the conditions of the hostages and is part of a series of events and demonstrations to mark 100 days of captivity.
I can just say that I'm now shivering. I can't breathe. I was there for 5 minutes and I just wanted to run away from there. And I had the choice to run away, but they don't have the choice. 100 days now. They're sitting in the dark in this terrible place. I can't even describe the feeling inside. It's so alone and so dark. And
protests marking the 100 days since the Hamas attack spread to the United States, where thousands of demonstrators gathered in Washington, D.C., calling for a ceasefire.
They are begging for their lives. The hospitals and schools.
Footage shows participants waving Palestinian flags and signs. There was even an effigy of U.S. President Joe Biden.
Free Palestine!
But just as Israelis mourned their dead and called for the release of captives, there were protests against Israel in other parts of the world. Many pro-Palestinian demonstrators flooded the streets of London on Saturday, participating in the National March for Palestine. They carried the Palestinian flags and banners and chanted, "Be free, Palestine." The march aimed to draw attention to the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas, which has entered its 4th month. The UK's stance on the conflict has been a subject of discussion, with last month's abstention from a UN General Assembly resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire. However, the UK supported a subsequent Security Council resolution on humanitarian aid and measures to create conditions for a cessation of hostilities, emphasizing the commitment to a sustainable ceasefire. Hundreds gathered in Lyon, France, to protest support for Gaza. Protesters were seen carrying signs declaring support and calling for Netanyahu's arrest. The rally was organized by the unions CGT, FO, FSU, Solidaire, UNSA and UNEF, and held at Place de Terreau in front of the City Hall, calling for peace and ceasefire in Gaza. But back in the West Bank, Israeli forces raided Al-Farah refugee camp. Israeli Defense Forces were seen using armored vehicles and bulldozers during a military operation. Reports say several people have been injured. The Israeli army has not commented on the raid, but said previously its soldiers were targeting terrorists in the area. The presidential elections are finally over in Taiwan, and William Lai has emerged president-elect. Congratulations came from U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken following the result, but China has frowned on it, calling the message a violation of Washington's commitment to maintaining only unofficial ties with Taiwan.
It was a big win for Taiwan's president-elect William Lai, who emerged winner of Saturday's election. Messages of congratulations have been pouring in from all over the world since the results were announced. Messages including from U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who emphasized partnership between Taipei and Washington, which he said was adopted in democratic values. A statement from him said, "We look forward to working with Dr. Lai and Taiwan's leaders of all parties to advance our shared interests and values." He also said that the U.S., one of Taiwan's biggest allies, is committed to maintaining cross-strait peace and stability, and that such collaboration should further long-standing unofficial relationship and be consistent with the U.S. Once-China policy. But Beijing has called the message a violation of Washington's commitment to maintaining only unofficial ties with Taiwan. Beijing views any statement in support for Taiwan as lending legitimacy to a candidate and political party it sees as a gang of separatists hoping to turn Taiwan into an independent sovereign nation. It stressed that the Taiwan question is the first red line that must not be crossed in China-US relations, and that it had lodged a formal diplomatic complaint. The new Taiwanese leader has, however, declared a willingness to cooperate with China. Speaking after his victory on Saturday, William Lai told supporters, "If there is a consensus, we are willing to cooperate with China on an equal and dignified basis. Taiwan is very willing to cooperate with China on a mutually beneficial basis to promote the well-being of the people on both sides and create a peaceful and prosperous future." He further stated that they had successfully taken the initial step after winning the election. The 64-year-old Lai, who won alongside his running mate and Taiwan's former representative to the United States, Hsiao Bi-khim, garnered more than 40% of the votes cast in an election with a 70.6% turnout. Following the announcement of the election results, the Foreign Ministry spokesperson of China commented, stating that the basic fact that there is only one China in the world and that Taiwan is part of China will not change. Previously, Chinese President Xi Jinping in his New Year address expressed confidence that Taiwan will surely be reunified with China. Meanwhile, many residents of the Taiwanese city of Taipei say the result of Saturday's election was nothing short of expected. Some residents who did not vote for Lai expressed open-mindedness to the election result, explaining that they are still hopeful the new president-elect would lead the country well.
And now my exclusive interview with Deputy Head of U.S. Mission in Nigeria, David Green. We discuss major issues between both countries and, of course, visa processing. Deputy Head of Mission David Green, thank you for speaking with us on Diplomatic Channel. You've been in Nigeria just a little over a year. And I know that you've also been to other African countries. I've read your profile, so you're well-versed when it comes to Africa. What have you learned about Nigeria in 1 year? I mean, how would you describe, what you knew of Nigeria before you arrived and, what you've experienced in the country so far?
Well, thank you very much for having me on, and it's great to chat with you. Well, what I would say is that my experience has been kind of what I had anticipated. I chose this position because of the importance of the U.S.-Nigeria relationship, because of the importance of Nigeria as a bilateral partner, as a regional actor on the continent and beyond. And what I found is that's all true. I've also been delighted at the incredible warmth with which I've been received personally. People have been very friendly, very welcoming, and the positive attitude and the welcome that I think we get as representatives of the United States. That's been really striking as well.
You said you chose this position, so you actually asked to be sent to Nigeria. That's slightly different, from other officials of the U.S. State Department. Most times they're just posted to Nigeria, but that you asked. What irked you? What made you curious about Nigeria that made you want to come?
Well, I think every diplomat's path is different. Everybody makes a set of choices in their career that bring them to different places. My engagement, as you mentioned, I'd served previously in Africa, especially North Africa. And one of the things that was really striking there was how much that region is focused on sub-Saharan Africa for economic growth and opportunity. And what I learned in that experience and hearing about the opportunities on the continent, and in West Africa especially, is what really drew me to Nigeria.
You've been opportune to witness the performance of, the Naira going up and down due to various factors. I mean, sometimes the government says it's this, they say, oh, it's the importation, and they say, no, it's not that, it's because, we're not importing anything, and then they say, oh, no, it's the oil prices, that's what is affecting the dollar, and then there's so many reasons that Nigerians have given, or the Nigerian government has given. How has that impacted on American investments in the country, if it has?
Well, one of the critical pieces of any effort for economic growth is to have the right fundamentals in place. And so I think we acknowledge that there are a lot of Nigerians that are struggling right now and having a difficulty, especially because of inflation and the fall of the Naira. But we also really respect the efforts the Tinubu administration is making to try and put the Nigerian economy on a firmer footing for the future, and addressing the challenges, addressing the problems that existed with regards to the Naira's valuation, foreign exchange, establishing a stable, transparent exchange rate regime. These are really important, and they're the kinds of things that create confidence both for Nigerian business people and for international investors to know that they're going to be able to achieve the goals of their investment, repatriate their earnings, and see growth. So it's a challenge to overcome these kinds of economic problems, but it's very important to build the macroeconomic foundation that's going to lead to growth, job creation, prosperity in the future.
Yeah, and repatriation of their funds, there has been a problem. I mean, at least I think in the last administration, just before it left, that was a huge problem. So are American businesses still confident of investing in Nigeria?
The United States is sometimes the number one, but certainly among the leading investors in Nigeria. And I think that's historically been the case. The stock of U.S. investment in Nigeria is very significant, and I think that's going to continue into the future. But when it comes to U.S. investors, any investors, Nigerian investors, what they're looking for is predictability, stability, and opportunities for economic growth, transparency, reduction in bureaucracy, all the kinds of things, again, that is a government's responsibility to create an enabling environment that's going to allow businesses to flourish and draw trade and draw investment. So I see a lot of optimism. I see a lot of interest. We organized a trade mission here a couple of months ago, and we had 20 or more individual businesses or trade associations come looking, really seeking to seize the opportunity. We brought a delegation of institutional investors, pension funds that manage hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, coming to Nigeria to see what the investment opportunities offer. So I think there is a moment of opportunity. I think American and other international investors are very interested in the opportunities that exist in Nigeria. So I think it's capitalizing on that momentum. And again, it's the steps that the government can take to create that enabling environment.
Yeah, speaking of momentum, that's something this administration, the new administration of Bola Tinubu, has been quite invested in. This shuttle diplomacy for, soliciting investments for Nigeria. I wanted to get your thoughts on that and, what the Biden administration makes of that. Because if you ask Nigerians, a lot of them will say there are a lot of things that need to be fixed first. You need to create a proper business environment for these investments to thrive, and then the government itself hasn't shown enough transparency for these investments to come in?
Well, I think we have seen some steps by the government, and I'm not going to. I think the government of President Tinubu can probably speak better to exactly what the strategy is on their part. What I see is a lot of enthusiasm from the United States, a lot of opportunity. I think we already see, of course, in the tech sector, for example, a tremendous influx of U.S. businesses and U.S. investment. You've got American tech giants like Cisco and Google and Meta, Starlink, you name it, very interested in Nigeria because of the potential and the growth of that sector. Certainly energy, historically it's been oil and gas. I think in the future it's going to be clean power, it's going to be clean energy. The agriculture, of course, is another sector. So the opportunity is there. American investors and American businesses see it. Again, everybody is looking to see that the policies of the Tinubu administration are going to put that environment in place that's going to allow for a predictable and transparent transaction environment where businesses can succeed. So I think everybody's watching, but I think that the enthusiasm is there.
So America is developing a wait and see approach. I mean, because it's only been a few months, right? So I guess that's...
Well, I think what I'd say is, it's the question is, is it America? The U.S. government can only do so much to sort of drive investment and growth. It's what private sector investors are saying and doing. So I think, I would encourage you to ask them those questions. But what I see is a lot of interest and a lot of optimism.
So this interview will be incomplete if I do not ask about the visas. There was a backlog. I think there is still a backlog. First-time applicants have up until beyond 2024. I mean, that's the next available date. For those who already had, the 2-year visa and all of that, it's still easier for them to apply. But for those who are first-time applicants, it is even more difficult now to get an interview date and to be able to process, one's visa. Where are we now, with the backlog, and what can you tell us, about the situation?
It's a fair question. I'm glad you asked. And there was a tremendous backlog between COVID and just some of the challenges. Ultimately, it's just math. The demand for interview appointments is much greater than the number of appointments that we can supply. So what I can say is that we've been working very steadily on it. We're going to continue to work on it to get that backlog down. Now, we have reduced the wait time for an average tourist visa from over 3 years, which is where it was just a few months ago, down to 1 year. And I know that doesn't sound great, but this year alone, we've interviewed over 115,000 tourist visa applicants. So we are getting the job done of interviewing Nigerians who have legitimate reason to travel to the United States. We've interviewed over 30,000 students during that time, separate from those tourist visas, and lots of folks in other categories. So we're really have redoubled our efforts to make sure that we're able to offer visa interviews as quickly as possible. So for example, if you're a student, your wait time is probably a month or less at this point. And we have provision where we can offer expedited appointments for cases that truly have an urgent need to travel. So yeah, that backlog still exists, but it's significantly reduced. Another step we took, and you mentioned the 2-year visas. In March of this year, we extended validity of visas that are issued after March to 5 years, which not only is a benefit for the individual visa holder, that they have their visa valid for 5 years, but over time it will reduce the number of applicants that have to seek to renew their visa after 2 years. So we're doing a lot of things, a lot of creative things to try and get that backlog down. But I will take advantage of the moment to tell your viewers, if you are seeking to travel to the United States, please apply early, plan ahead, and we will do our best to get that interview for you.
And this is where we end the program this week. Thank you for watching. Don't forget you can reach me on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook. The addresses are on your screen. I'm Amarachi Obani. I'll see you next time.